Welcome. Thanks for watching and listening to the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm Phil from ShopNotes, joined by Logan and John from Popular Woodworking and Woodsmith, respectively. This is episode number 165 today. We're going to give a couple of reader comments from last episode. We'll talk about shop updates and a little bit of what's been going on here at Woodsmith and Popular Woodworking over the last week here. Thanks for joining us and hope you enjoyed today's show. Want to say thank you to Titebond. You want a glue that you can trust, and fortunately, Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit titebond.com. All right. And in a first, this is the first official podcast with Logan in his new shop.
That's right. We ghetto hooked up the internet last night. I'm basically running a line to the telephone wires outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like two little alligator clips. Just
yeah, I drilled a hole through the house, which is really weird to do.
Yeah.
Ran my line from the shop. I'm planning on burying it. Right now it's stretched out across the ground into the shop or into the house, and I unplugged we have a couple security cameras in the house, and the one in the backyard doesn't really see anything except deer and turkey and my dogs, me chasing my dogs in my underwear and stuff. So it's like, we'll unplug that one and plug the internet for the shop into there. So yeah, so we got internet, got TV in here. I can watch the ShopNotes podcast on my TV in the shop, which is fun.
Yeah.
which is fun.
Yeah.
I don't actually.
That sounds like a blast.
So yeah, it's fun.
Very nice. All right, let's pick up a couple of comments from last week's episode. That's the one where we were talking about the new Festool track saw with the scoring blade on it. Steven writes, I'm retired and have a complete Shopsmith equipped shop that I've used for 42 years. I recently bought the Festool Plunge track saw 55 with 55-inch and 119-inch tracks, plus their dust extractor. I bought it for sheet goods and just love it. I watched all the 145 Festool Live podcast. The two most recent podcasts demonstrate their CSC 50 table saw. Quite impressive. Oh, that was the table saw in a sustainer kind of looking thing. Sean writes, crotch goblins made me laugh out loud on the train and people looked at us. Thanks for the laugh.
If people go back and watch that podcast, notice I did not react to that at all. Like, normally, I'd be cracking up at the simplest thing, and professionalism, folks.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Put it in the Louvre.
CC Swede writes, the track saw is useful in dealing with 6, 8, and 12-quarter hardwood. You can straighten the edge of a board before jointing. By the way, most sliding table saws have clamps to help keep the material secured to the table. You can make a jig for the table to do precise cuts like that on a deluxe table saw. This post is nothing but a Festool ad. How much did they pay you?
Okay, so that rubs me the wrong way because I have not been able to get a single dollar of advertisement out of Festool. So
they owe us.
Way to rub it in.
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny that it was nothing but a Festool ad. When you go back and listen through the whole podcast, there was lots of nonsense in there. So I feel like I feel like that there is some kind of a nonsense company that owes us lots of money then, if we're doing it that way. We're pointing out new tools and something that just kind of felt interesting. So just keep scrolling. New Mexico Dan says, yep, you harass us shopsmithers and now festoolers.
Yep.
LOL, I have 2 Shopsmiths and the latest project was to build a Charles Brock rocker. I also have a Festool multifunction table, bought it for $200. I wouldn't buy that table at the price they sell it for.
Yeah, let's go down the list. We've upset Intarsia people.
Right.
Festool, Shopsmith, people that build with Eastern Red Cedar.
Actual benches. Looking at you, Kevin Thomas.
Yep.
It's like, we just are here for the controversy.
Yep. I mean, it's the old adage, right? Any press is good press. Any buzz is good buzz.
Yeah.
Right. We're just a rage factory for anybody out there.
Fueled by hate.
Yeah. You know, I will say that Woodsmith and Popular Woodworking both accept advertising.
Yep.
And that complicates our relationship in how we talk about stuff. But for the most part, I would say that on the Shop Notes we have sponsors for the podcast. That's part of one of the reasons, because, I mean, I like food with my meals. I don't know about you guys. But a careful listening of all of our podcasts will reveal that we have equal opportunity, scorn, and praise for all kinds of stuff.
We are not sponsored by raisins, that is for sure.
I am. John is not. You noticed for lunch the other day, I went straight for the oatmeal raisin cookie because that's my jam.
I'm glad you took it off the board before I found it.
And just cleared it away, brushed it. Get that out of here.
Right in the garbage, because I don't want to accidentally bite into that.
See, and I like dried fruits of all kinds.
I do too.
Love it. Bring it on.
I don't know.
John has trust issues.
Yeah. Maybe I just got a bad raisin one time. I've been into some raisin gristle or something. Ruined all raisins for me. I don't know.
You can't judge all raisins based on the actions of one. John.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I need to revisit it. Give it another shot. I came around with walnut, so
Yeah.
The food or the material?
The wood, the material.
Okay. All right.
Okay. That's fair. We appreciate and celebrate growth in all of its many splendored forms here.
Yep.
All right. I like to haunt used bookstores and thrift shops, partially because I know that it's where Logan finds all of his humongous old tools. So
that's right.
But anyway, and we've been talking about Logan's dream workshop, which we're now seeing on the podcast for all of you people who are watching on the radio. And I got to tour it not that long ago, and it's super fun to see tools in place there.
Yep.
For people watching on YouTube, just over Logan's right shoulder is like the control panel for his Vic mark. Yeah, there it is.
She's right there. There's a old project in the back from
ShopNotes tool cabinet. Yep.
And then there's the Kennedy cabinet right there.
Yep.
So
also from ShopNotes.
Yep.
So we got like
new
vintage ShopNotes and new ShopNotes.
Yep. And the big crescent is right here. I could probably spin and get it in camera. Ignore the rest of the dirty shop. Oop, there's a ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Takes up the whole screen.
Yeah.
Sure does. So, oh God, now this thing won't roll back. So, we just ruined all of that video. There we go. Okay, we're back.
Perfect. Excellent.
So, I have been having a heck of a time trying to get paint for this Crescent bandsaw. Like, because this thing, it was new on pallet. I think I've said that before. Like, it was never installed. But over it's a 1955, so what is that, like 70 years? So over the 70 years that it sat on the pallet and sat in warehouses, I don't know if the heating and cooling, the shifts in temperature, condensation, some of the paint had started to flake off. Like, there's not a single scratch on it. It's just all paint that's starting to peel, and I would almost guarantee it's a lead-based paint, right? But I've taken off. I took off there's a square D control panel for the magnetic starter on it, or magnetic on-off switch. I took that into Lowe's or Home Depot and had them paint match it, like, use their little spectrometer to measure the color and give me an entire gallon of enamel paint, because that's all they can mix up is an entire gallon. It's too dark. Like, it's not the right color. Yeah. So, dang. But then I think I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, you guys know, I bought some Delta stuff from a gentleman that was he was at the age he didn't want to woodwork anymore. So I bought a bunch of his Delta stuff, his Unisaw and his jointer. The DJ20 jointer I bought is identical color to this.
Is it really?
It is.
Wow.
The base on it, the cast iron is not, but the sheet metal base on it is identical color. So I'm like doing some research, like, oh, what color did Delta use at 1991 for their bases for their jointers? And everyone's like, yeah, you're never gonna find it because they used like 30 different colors. It's like whatever they could buy at the time that was close is what they bought. And so it's like, I wonder if I maybe try to bring that in and have that color matched. I don't know. My wife's like, why don't you just repaint the whole thing? I'm like, do you see how many like nooks and crannies are on this? Like, you're like, be miserable.
There's not a dip tank big enough.
Nope. So, and I, honestly, I've used a little. I bought for all the let's really upset the Harbor Freighters. So I went to the people that hate Harbor Freight. I went to Harbor Freight the other day and bought a surfacing tool. It's basically like a handheld drum sander that's horizontal.
Okay.
So it uses a big 4-inch drum that's, 6 inches long, and it's for conditioning surfaces like auto body and stuff. And I'm using it for the tables on a lot of my stuff, to clean up the tables. But they also had a little nylon abrasive brush for the drill.
Okay.
So I bought that and started hitting some of the loose paint. And I don't mind it with, like, there's body filler underneath. So when you do a big steel casting, it's almost impossible to get a casting this large. I mean, this is a 1,500 pound casting that's 6 foot tall. You can't get that void free. Right. So a lot of the times what they do is they come over top of the casting with body filler. Think of a Bondo. It wasn't Bondo, but where I have started to brush away some of that flaking paint, it gets down to like this mustard yellow colored body filler. It kind of gives it like a grungy steampunk look, and I don't really mind it.
Yeah.
So if I can't get something the right color, I'll probably just brush off the flaking paint and let it simmer. We'll let it be until I decide I need to paint it. So
yeah.
Well, that was one of the questions that I had, is how, because you have all of these old tools, I know you got the Powermatic planer kind of floating around back there. I mean, are you going to try to, because there are folk you'll see online where they have the garage find or barn find of a old tool, and then they go just full
resto,
grand concours restoration on it, and it's all gleaming paint like it just came out of the factory.
Like some of them, yes. Like the big joiner, that needs enough work that yes. But I think I let the tool dictate really how much it needs. Like, what does it need to get running? That joiner needed a lot of work to get going. It still needs a lot of work to get going. So that will get painted. It'll look brand new when I'm done with it. This Powermatic. So you guys heard my little adventure to the auto body paint store, which was a way more expensive trip than I planned on. And I was going to get gold paint to match this Powermatic. It happens to be a 77 Cadillac metallic gold. It looked like, when I was looking at the planer originally, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of rust on there. I kind of want to touch up, mainly just for photos. Like, I don't care if it was personal shop stuff. I don't really care. But for photos and stuff, I kind of want it to look a little bit cleaner. I don't mind seeing the wear on it. This side's not too bad. The other side, where the planer has this gold and white band that goes all the way across the top.
Sure.
On the other side, the infeed side, it's wore off really bad. It's down to the metal. And
Right.
I think that's because the Howard and the son Corey that had this before me, I think when they were passing boards through, they'd slide them back over that side and pull them off. I mean, it just looks like that type of wear of,
Right.
thousands of boards pulled off that edge.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing that. And actually, a lot of what I thought was rust on here actually is like, I don't know if finish got spilled on it at some point or something. There's a lot of stuff that it's coming off. I bought a gallon of naphtha, and it's coming off of the naphtha. So, it'll clean up pretty well with the naphtha. I just wanted to look at the photos, but it's a shop. It's still a shop. So,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because we kind of fight that battle here for photography for the magazines on what, and even on video, like what's the appropriate level of, can a router bit that we're showing in photos have some chipped paint on it, or, kind of gunk buildup on the cutting edges, or, before that becomes distracting, or, especially when you're zeroed in on it, because then it looks like you don't know how to take care of your tools. So why are we taking photos of it?
Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things that ends up being it's real life though. You know what I mean? Like I get it. And when I started at Woodsmith, we had back in your office, so there was a tool cabinet that had all the photo bits in it. So it's like when you needed a router bit for an article, you grabbed it out of the cabinet back there, you walked it across the street into the photo studio, and that's what you used, and then it went right back into that cabinet. And I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not real life. Like most of us are not cleaning our bits like we should. We're not soaking our saw blades and cleaning the pitch off them until it causes a problem. The same thing with we hear it all the time when people come visit our office and do tours. It's like, where's the sawdust? It's like, well, it's around. It's just that it happens to be a video studio, and I think right now we use the video studio more as a shop now than we ever have in the past. So now it's not, we don't hear that as much. But yeah, it's I don't mind, especially every one of these. They all have stories. So I got this one from my buddy up in Wisconsin, Larry. I got that one from Howard. This crescent came from the Rock Island Armory. I mean, they all have stories, and the look and wear on them kind of tells the stories. It's part of the story, I guess.
Yeah.
I think people are more understanding when stuff looks used but well maintained, rather than everything looks like it's just out of the shrink wrap. And
yes.
do you guys even woodwork? Because there's no dust, there's no wear or anything, and so we probably get more comments about that than anything. Is that if it's too clean?
Well, and the other side of it is, with being at the magazine or managing magazines like we do, we could have these shops, whether it's my shop, the video studio, the photo studio, any of them. If we wanted them to be all Powermatic, like I'm sure Powermatic would send them to us if we asked, but that's not what we do. Like, and it kind of goes back to the whole festival comment. Like, you don't want to be in an advertiser's pocket. We want to respect the relationships we have, because that's how we can still produce these magazines. But there is a separation of editorial and advertisers there. So I always laugh when I see a video or a photo of somebody's shop on the vintage woodworking site where it's like all green Powermatic, all pristine green Powermatic. And that's cool if that's the machinery they love. Like this guy I just bought this stuff from, he was a Delta guy, and that's cool. I don't think most of us are loyal to one brand and one brand only.
Yeah.
So I mean, in here I have SawStop, Bailey, Powermatic, Vic Mark. I mean, I got a mix of stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people that are into cars and they'll only own a Ford or only own a Chevrolet, but it's like, really, it's like, you know what? Toyota makes a good, family car, and Ford makes a good truck, or, so you mix and match between the tools of like, well, I want this brand of planer and I want this brand of table saw. And so it's, are you a fan of a certain brand, or are you just looking for like your favorite of each model of tool type of thing.
Yeah. And a little bit of like what's available, too, because I don't know. It's not living room furniture, for pity's sake, where you have to buy a whole suite of something or other.
Yeah, and usually you're not buying it all at the same. Like, it's kind of a growth. You're getting tools here and there as you go through the woodworking journey, rather than buying a suite of tools all at once.
Thank you to Titebond. You want a glue that you can trust, and fortunately, Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time, to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit titebond.com.
No, it's like I just looked over my shoulder. I was very particular when I set up. Right there, I don't have the top trim done. Right there, I do. So it's like I was very particular when I set up my camera. Like, we showed the corner of the shop that has all the trim done, and then I swung and there's no trim right there. I got more alder in. I'm on board feet. I did 300, 200, 200. So that's 700 board feet that I'm into this. So I just ordered the 800th board feet. So
nice.
Which is funny.
The math doesn't check out.
Yeah, because I remember when you ordered the first lot, you're like, if I have blah blah blah, then like this number of board feet should be fine, right? I'm like, yeah, that seems right. And then you've since like tripled that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I was doing the calculations. I'm like, am I getting shorted from Liberty? Like, because like. Like, I've had very little waste. Like, it's actually been really cool because it's like all of the waste that I've had. Now, some of it gets planed off, but it's the thickness. It's 1 inch thick, so it's not that big a deal. Taking everything into account, all my offcuts have been between, on every board, my offcuts have been between a quarter of an inch and a half of an inch. So, like, there's not much. It's all... Of all 700 board feet, they're all in a trash can. Like, they're all in a steel trash can standing up. So there's not much waste there. And they're 10-foot long boards, 120 inches, and my wall is 40 inches tall. So I've been lopping them into 3 sections of 40 inches. So there's no offcuts on the ends. So I'm like, how? Like, I've added it all up, and I'm like, that first order that I did should have been plenty to do my wall paneling, and I've ordered twice since then. So now they are straight line ripping for me, but I can't imagine they're taking that much off. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways,
it's a mystery.
Christmas gifts.
So for people who are just checking in or missed the episode where I talked about it, and I get to talk about it this year because the gifts that I'm making are for nieces and nephews that don't listen to this podcast and wouldn't. So if their parents hear it, then the surprise is ruined. But anyway, so the theme is I'm making gifts for my nieces and nephews on my wife's side of the family, and I'm doing like bookshelf boxes. That's, I guess, the best way to do it. And the one that I have closest to being done here is one for my nephew who's really into Minecraft. So I'll put a photo of it on the show notes page. But since it's a bookshelf box, primarily the view is from the front. And I did kind of a marquetry pattern with shop sawn mahogany veneer into little squares to give it that Minecraft kind of pixelated look. And then Logan, you did Minecraft. What were the boxes called? Like I keep thinking like crafting table, and it's like crafting table. Nope. Crafting table.
I have no idea.
Nope.
My boys do Minecraft. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Minecraft. Yeah.
Kind of like little treasure boxes or whatever that they keep all of their gear in.
Loot crates or something like that.
Yeah. So then I did the framing or the trim work on it with little inlaid strips of wenge that I had. It's one of those things where it's like I have little pieces of wenge that are too small for anything, but it's wenge and you just don't want to throw them away or burn them. So I found a use for them in the trim there. So really all I have left on that is just cleaning up the fit of the lid to the box and then doing the hinge. And then I need to come up with a better way to register the lid on the box so that it stays lined up. But otherwise, I think it's in good shape. My next one is going to be a bookshelf box that is reminiscent or an interpretation of number 12 Grimmauld Place from Harry Potter, the house, the home of the ancient and noble house of Black. So that one will be kind of fun. I'm excited
speaking
for it.
Of which, did you see? I'm sure you've seen it. Have you seen Chris Fitch's little things he's doing?
Yes,
the little houses. Those are the coolest thing I've ever seen come out of his head.
That's saying something.
That's saying something. So now I'm going to show my nerd side. I'm going to flash my nerd side real quick. I used to be really when I was in middle school and high school, I used to be really into this was when Lord of the Rings came out. Okay. I was probably middle school when Lord of the Rings came out, and a company called Games Workshop. Okay, they are the ones that produce the tabletop war game Warhammer 40K. They do a lot of those type of tabletop war games where you have a big terrain set up and you have these little miniature armies and they battle and whatever. It sounds super nerdy as I say this out loud, but this is a therapy session. So they also released the Lord of the Rings one. So I got really into those during middle school. Definitely not into high school at all, because that'd be way too nerdy for high school.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how cool that would be to make a little Minas Tirith out of that, or do a Diagon Alley type thing. Because I did a lot of that type of diorama type work. I had a lot of terrain molds that you'd mix plaster up and pour them in, and you make little rock facades and stuff like that. Kind of like the model train or hobby train type people. So I looked at that. I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen him do. I would have a CNC for no other reason except to make those. and okay, so here's the other side of that. That would be a great product to sell, on an Etsy store or something. And the nerds got the money, man. They're the ones in IT. They're running the world. So
I'll put a link to Chris's CNC Base Camp episode where he's been working on. He did what Logan's talking about is he did a birdhouse that looks like a London 3-flat kind of townhome. And so he used the CNC to create a incised pattern of brickwork going up the front and then wrapping around the sides of this birdhouse. And then he also did some other textured work where one of them looks like, I don't know, how would you describe that? Like textured stone, like a rusticated stone facade. And then another one is like stacked stone or like a flagstone pathway or something like that. And it's amazing and ridiculous all at the same time.
Well, and let's just point out his painting skills as well, because the windows have shading on them and they look like little panes of glass. I'm like, Chris, I hate you.
Well, and he's even the brickwork, the grout or the mortar lines between the brick are one color, and it's not the background color of the substrate. And then the top or the facade of the brick is a brick red color, but it's not just a plain brick red color. It's like a two-tone.
Oh no, it's like dry brushed and everything. So there's gradients and it looks like a brick.
Yeah. So he had actually a couple of spoil pieces from when he was working on the brick. Just sometimes a CNC will get out of register and just have kind of a brain fart or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm going to use one of his spoil pieces for the facade of my Grimmauld Place.
Cool.
Bookshelf box. And then I'm going to have that facade slide on grooves to the left or right to be able to get to the inside of the box. So I think that'll be kind of fun.
Like little T-track grooves or T-slots?
I'm thinking I'm just going to do like a tongue and dado, because like the top of the building would have like an overhanging cornice. Okay. And I'll just have like a groove in that, and then a tongue on the facade that it'll slide in. That's kind of how I'm picturing it in my head right now. Okay. Maybe I'll have something next week or week after to be able to show off to folk on that. So where I was going to earlier is I was at a bookstore. I'm trying to remember where I came across it, but I found this book, Workshops You Can Build, by David and Jeannie Stiles.
Now you find that book after I'm done.
Yeah. And I know David's written a bajillion other kind of home improvement-y, woodworking kind of books. He's got a really cool drawing style. Kind of reminds me of Alden Watson, who did a bunch of woodworking books like in the middle part of the century. He did one like Country Woodworking or Hand Tools or something like that. And he has one in here that if I were this, we've talked about it in the past, of a dream workshop. And I've talked about how I'm trying to be content with my back of the garage workshop. But he's got this. I'll put some photos on the show notes page. He's got this one. It's kind of a timber framed looking thing with the clerestory windows way at the top, shed looking something or other. And I think what's really cool about it is that the main part of the shop building, it's 14 by 18.
Okay.
So I would call that smaller than a 2-car garage.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
And it has a separate room off of one side where he has it just as a lumber rack. It's like 30 inches wide, runs the 18-foot length of the building with kind of doors at both ends, just as a separate lumber storage thing. So, and then he'll do like the little floor plan views and stuff like that. That would be my dream shop. I found it.
Okay.
It wouldn't fit in my suburban backyard right now, but
garage has to come out.
Right. Or my little dumb shed.
Yes.
So if I got rid of the shed and
the maple tree's gone now.
Yeah, maple tree's gone, and the trampoline that the kids don't use anymore. I could have room for it there. But then that opens up a whole can of worms of power and
just make your garage longer.
Yeah, keep stretching it back.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was just kind of funny flipping through that book. I was going to pick it up anyway just for kind of basic woodworking research for articles for ShopNotes and Woodsmith and stuff like that. And then I flipped and I found that particular shop drawing, and it's like, that's it.
What? So that's 252 square feet. What tools would you have in there then? Would you kind of stick with your same setup you have?
I would kind of stick with my same setup and just have a little bit more space.
Okay.
I don't know what I would do to add.
You wouldn't put a table saw back in?
I wouldn't.
Would you get a bigger bandsaw maybe?
I've always thought that I wanted a larger bandsaw, but because you see people online or co-workers that get these gigantic bandsaws and they're super cool, and I would think about it, but I don't know that I want to deal with some kind of 3-phase dilithium crystal conversion, something or other that needs to happen.
But I mean, you could go to an 18.
Right.
Inch,
and like who was the company that kind of preceded Delta, or that Delta bought out? And they had like a 16-inch saw. Boy, that...
Like Rockwell?
No, it wasn't, because it was like Delta Rockwell, but it was... Yep. When I think of it, I'll put it in the show notes page, but they always had like a 16-inch saw that I thought would be like a really sweet one. And so it's a little bit bigger, comes with kind of a naturally more resaw capacity on it. But I've found that Delta that I have is a fantastic saw. And so I don't really have a reason to get rid of it. We've had one in our shop here for a while now. Is the jointer planer, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Combination of a tool.
Yeah. If I did not have the big jointer or this Powermatic planer, I would strongly consider buying a hammer.
Right.
Like the A31 or they have like an A45 or something like that. Because it's one small footprint. Even though I have the space, it's getting eaten up real quick. It would sure be nice to have that all in one footprint.
Right.
And they work pretty freaking well. Like they give you, you're getting a big planer, and it makes sense. You're getting a jointer and a planer that are the same size. So it's like those two tools in harmony, that's generally you're stuck with a planer that's bigger than a jointer.
Right.
So
like it's not like the Rikon that we have on the video set is not as long as a traditional jointer, but I've jointed some pretty long pieces on there.
As have I, yeah. Yep.
And it's not as difficult.
No.
As you would think, or as traditional jointer folk would say is reasonable. I don't feel like it's been that difficult to do. So
yeah, I think the longest jointer that we have, the longest jointer that I've used actually is the DJ20, the one that Mark has, the Delta. It happens to be the same one I just bought and moved into my shop. And they have a little bit over a 6-foot long bed in total.
Right.
Most of them, though, like thinking about our old Canadian-made General,
the
Powermatic, they're all under that. The General now seems like a little Fisher-Price jointer. It's still an 8-inch, but the bed's only like 4.5 foot long. Like it's not real long at all. So, not that you need it. And edge jointing boards is a fairly straightforward and fairly easy task. It's the flattening faces that becomes an issue.
Yeah. Yep. So that would be about it. I don't know. I go back and forth. I've shared my woes on the podcast before of like having a dedicated slot mortiser would be kind of cool. But then it's like, at that price, do you just get a not sponsored Domino and just deal with it and have it as a portable tool?
Yeah. Or Panther router.
Or something along those lines.
That takes up a pretty good footprint. What about a full-size router table? Because I know you're working on a small one for yourself. I know you have a compact one.
Yeah, I have the compact one, and I'm working on what I would call more of a full-size router table now that I still plan to put in my workshop. But it would be nice to have some of those tools a little bit more spread out, because in a smaller shop you are definitely really cognizant of overlapping work zones.
Yep.
Like what's the outfeed of my bandsaw? Is that going to clear, this shelf behind it, or dust collector on the opposite side, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that would be about it. I'm sure that, like you've discovered, you have a larger space, so you feel like you have more opportunity for something, even though you don't necessarily know what it is until it happens.
Well, and it's when you have it, you use it.
Right.
In general, though that is just the more money you make, the more money you spend. The more space you have in your shop, the more of your shop you fill up. So, I'm kind of getting to that point. Do you have a drill press in your shop?
I do, yeah. I have an old Delta.
Oh, you do. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you keep that in there.
Yep.
I feel like that's probably my next tool that I will upgrade. You guys saw the boat anchor that I have in the storage area. I have a old. It's actually a machinist drill press, ran off of a jack shaft. It has a motor on it, but it's one of the Camelback style or camel hump style type ones, and it needs a lot of work, and that's not something I'm going to tackle anytime soon. It was buy this planer, get that for free, basically. And I have a Delta. I have one of our Delta drill presses, I think, from the photo studio.
Okay.
And she's been used pretty hard. And I really like the style of speed adjustment that the Powermatics and our Rikon has, where it's a Reeves drive more or less, where you move a lever as it's running and it increases or decreases the pulley size to speed it up or slow it down. So I really like that idea of getting one of those. Although if I found a sweet deal on a good shaped radial arm drill press, I'd be hard pressed to not get it.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
Yeah,
I do like the one that I have. Isn't a bad drill press. The return spring is busted on that Delta, so that's kind of tough. There's no crank for the table, which can be a pain because you just end up sort of dealing instead of adjusting the table height. And having the variable speed as a lever or a wheel or however you want to do it is much better than pinching your fingers in pulleys.
I'm less apt to change the speed on the pulleys.
Oh yeah.
It's like 3,000 RPM on a 3-inch Forstner bit. That means
that'll probably work.
Hole.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You got to cauterize it.
Yep, that's right.
So, anyway, that was just kind of fun to see. It's fun to daydream sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can take that shed out real quick, Phil. I got a flatbed and a tractor. We can just pick it up. So 200 and would you? I mean, I would assume that you would concrete that then. If theoretically, if you would build it in your backyard, you would concrete the base, right?
Probably, because I would like to. Like the shed that's back there is just a garden tool shed kind of thing, and the ideal thing is having it conditioned enough to be comfortable to work in. And I think just a framed up floor floating over gravel is going to be super cold in winter, even if I were to insulate between joists down there. So, like you did on yours where you have insulation below the slab.
Yeah. Yeah. And that does make a big difference. And
yeah,
it was even this winter without having insulation in this half of the shop, but I do have insulation under this slab. There was a noticeable difference in the concrete. Don't get me wrong, 0-degree concrete isn't a whole lot different than 10-degree concrete, but there is a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I also like that shop has like 2 big double doors on the ends to be able to open up and have airflow on the nice, the pleasant days, or even even if it's borderline cool or warm, like being able to have sunlight in.
Yep. The I like the fact that it has those windows up along the top ridge.
Right.
The Eureka Springs School of the Arts down in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which is where Doug Stowe teaches.
Yeah.
And where I've done to travel down to do photos with him. They have that same thing along their ridge line. They have butterfly wing roofs on that building. It's ESSA's Building 6 is the name of the building. But it's really nice. You walk in there in the morning. There's just this beautiful raking sunlight coming through those windows, and of course, every time I've been down there, it's been the fall, so it's all been beautiful, and the leaves are all changed and stuff. So I do like those, and I wish. I think Frank Howarth has the same style of windows in his shop.
Could be, yeah.
And I just always liked that style. I just wasn't feasibly able to do that here.
Yeah, my brother had a shop space from a friend of his when he was living in Kansas City years ago, and it was kind of a similar sort of thing. And it just, that style kind of reminds me of some of the farm outbuildings, you know, that you would see on an old school farm. So there definitely is a nostalgia element to it. And so there you go. I think that's all I got for today.
We know what we're doing next spring. We're going to fill a shop. I can start cutting 2x4s right now.
We've had, like in the past, we had shed and small garage, you know, projects in the magazine. I mean, we could shoehorn it in, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm game for it, but
all right.
Yes.
On the calendar.
All right, in other news, we had the last few days the folk from Titebond in as we were doing some videos for them, talking about their different glues. Their big three are Titebond Original, Titebond 2, and Titebond 3, which all have special places in our hearts. If you've watched the TV show, you've seen Chris Fitch adore his bottle of Titebond Original. And Logan and I have waxed poetically about their hide glue. Mark Hopkins here in the shop with an English accent speaks longingly of Speed Set. And John, I don't know that you have a favorite, do you?
Yeah. It's like having
Whatever's
a favorite
closest.
child. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all his favorite.
I like the three, the trace.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
The treacle.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, it was fun to have them in here. They're sponsoring the podcast as well as the TV show. And that is a fun sponsorship because I think we've all used their glues since we've picked up glue bottles and given up our Elmer school glue from school projects. So thank you to Titebond. If you're interested in their glues and all the different iterations that they have, you want to check it out at titebond.com. Questions, comments, and smart remarks, I want to hear about it. And you can send those to Woodsmith at woodsmith.com, or do all the bell ringing, subscribing, high-fiving, whatever that needs to happen on YouTube, and you can leave a comment there as well. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on the ShopNotes Podcast. Bye.
I don't know if that's John's microphone doing that. Are you jingling coins, John?
This?
Yep, it is.
Okay. So, here,